All right, good morning. Welcome back, Morina. Just a quick health and safety brief. You spot a fire, we all know what to do. You do a quick walk, brief walk, down the stairs and outside. You feel a shake, you drop and hold, and then when it's all over, you make your way down to Grey Street just outside. The bathrooms are outside on the right, past registration. I can see a lot of new faces today, so hopefully you missed out on the first brief that I did on the first day with the jokes. But now I hope you've all enjoyed your first 2 days. It's been insightful, been eye-opening, and I've personally learned quite a lot. I hope you've all met people from around your own sector and opened up your mind to new and exciting insights, skills, and learnings, like we said on the first day. Today is the last day. I honestly commend everyone for making it through. So it's been 2 very full days. You've got a little bit of a shorter day today. But yesterday I went into a few of the talks and I learned a lot about AI. I personally haven't used it before, and I thought to introduce the first amazing keynote speaker, Jan, I put in some words and I saw what it came up with. So, Jan, I apologize if anything's not as great. This wasn't me, it was AI. So Jan is a visionary, adept at leveraging data to construct innovative realms, unveiling previously unseen insights with a wealth of experience spanning diverse sectors. There's nothing untrue there, so far so good. Jan excels in peering beyond the horizon, steering organizations towards transformative change through data-driven approaches. Again, so far so good. Adopting a comprehensive systems perspective, Jan ensures the delivery of optimal value while actively investing in nurturing the requisite people capabilities for both the present and the future. So, allow me in welcoming our very own Kiwi Jan.
Well, thank you for that great introduction. Actually, I'd love a copy because I think that's better than I could write. So that really does set the scene about the value and opportunities that AI gives us. Just to clarify one thing when we're talking about AI, we typically go to that it's artificial intelligence, therefore it's some machine coming up with something. But it's really helpful to think about as augmented intelligence. You put in your text and it comes up with something that we as a human might have struggled to come up with by ourselves. So just putting that out there to set the scene. So kia ora koutou, I'm Jan Sheppard, I'm the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at ESR, which is the Institute of Environmental Science and Research. And it is a great privilege to be here today with you to share some of my thoughts and insights, and also some of the work that we're doing at ESR. So congratulate you on being here, giving yourselves the gift of time that you have to be here over the last 3 days to share your own stories, to learn from each other and from the speakers that have been here on the other 2 days. So today I'm going to be talking about building the future in data. It's a really important topic that we need to be getting ready for. But to start off with, before we think about the future, we've got to know where we are now. What's our current operating environment? So Jack Walsh summed it up really well, that we're operating in a time of high change. And if the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. But those who are not familiar with Jack Walsh, he was CEO of General Electric at a time when productivity went up 4,000%. He looked at what was happening on the outside and said, we need to keep pace and we need to build the company and we need to build our products that the future wants. So he said about that, and very successfully. Why I say the rate of change is exponential, because if we look at Moore's law, the number of transistors on an integrated circuit doubles every 2 years with minimal rise in cost. Technology is really driving this change that we're experiencing now, and we need to embrace that. It is our friend, it is not our foe. It is happening, and it's ours to use into the future. And that future is coming, whether we're ready or not. We're facing a lot of, and you can say, challenges or opportunities in the future. So depending on whether you look at it glass half full or half empty as to what you see. COVID is top of mind of everybody, the pandemic that was, but the next is on its way. We have bird flu currently in Europe that everyone's watching to make sure, see if it doesn't swap over into humans. This happens quite regularly, that we have this type of flu, bird flu, swine flu, we're all familiar with those words. This is where COVID came from. It came from the animal kingdom and swapped into humans. It exists all around us all of the time, and there's good people watching it, but the next is on its way. COVID made that transition, just as the next will. So we need to be ready. We were caught out last time because we had never experienced anything, oh no wait, since Spanish flu. But apart from that and those other pandemics that came before that, we were caught out. We weren't ready, we didn't have a plan, and we didn't know how to prepare ourselves. So being prepared, having resilience is what we need. And we have the opportunity now. We're in a time where we have the space and the opportunity to get ourselves ready. Climate change is a big one, right? I think we can all say Wellington's actually benefiting from it. We're having great weather, but that's not the case for everybody everywhere. Climate change is nature's way of balancing itself out around the world. It's the ocean currents, it's everything, it's the whole of nature working in a different way to what we've been used to. And as humans, we're quite fragile. We like things to be quite consistent, and it's changing at a rate that's quite fast for us. We can't stop it in the short term, but we are suffering the effects. So building resilience in that space is also something that's really important. As is our impact as humans on the environment. There's more and more of us, we're using more resources, we're burning fossil fuels, we're having an impact on the future. So we need to be mindful about that and do what we can to minimise the harm and maximise the benefit. One thing that we don't really talk about much is the security of our food sources. With climate change, with rising pests that we haven't had to deal with before, as well as shifting climates and water supply, and our growing population. Food security is a big one. It's a big one for us into the future. And there's some great companies out there working on how to derive protein from different sources, how do we grow resilient plants. So there's a lot of work going on in that place, and it's one that I'd really like to highlight because it's a big one that doesn't get much media time. Precision health is a great opportunity into the future. There's all sorts of breakthroughs in medicine, wearables, discovering what's wrong, what's going on with people at early stages, and so different treatments. There's now treatments for all sorts of new and incredible diseases and conditions. I think the recent one was sickle cell anemia. So there's now a treatment for that. Costs $1 million. This is really going to create a dilemma into the future. Are we going to spend $1 million to treat one person with one condition, or are we going to spend that $1 million on 100 other people with something else? So precision health is driving us into a future that's costing us more and more, and we need to be making decisions around where we're going to spend our money and what's of value to who. Globalisation. The world's becoming so connected, technology's driving this. You look at the software you use, you look at how you operate it at work, where does this come from? It comes from all around the world. And therefore, we need to be mindful of our data as well and where that travels around the world. There's so many opportunities coming through this, like even travel. We can work anywhere. Just talking to Raj about a former colleague of his, current colleague of mine, our CIO, lives in Australia, works here. We have a lot of opportunities in globalisation, but it also the big tech plays a role in that, and we need to choose wisely there. Water is massive. Access to fresh water, this is what's tipped to be the next wars will be over water. It's something that we here in New Zealand take for granted, but it's really a threat in a lot of countries, and I'll talk a little bit more about in the Pacific what's happening with clean water there. It's essential to sustain human life, so it is something that we need to have on our radar when we're looking into the future, as are all of these other areas. So fortunate for us, we have data. We have technology that can create data like we've never known before. We are literally swimming in data, and we have a capability that we all know and love called data science. So whose organisations embrace data science, would you say? Well, I'd expect, yeah, pretty much every hand should go up for that. So what are the key things that data science is doing for you that you couldn't do before? Anyone going to share? Okay. So data science, when it came out as like smart analytics, because we had a lot of data analysts doing some pretty cool stuff with data. Technology started to get a bit better. And so then the field of data science emerged, and those data analysts rebranded to call them data scientists and got paid more money. That was the genesis of data science. But it has taken us in quite a direction and opened up new opportunities to address these areas that I've just touched on about the future. We're now at a point where data science is not just data science. It's not just a single term like that. Data science has now emerged into a science. So not just semantics, but flipping it around. Data science is a science where the domain is data. That gives us the freedom to think about our work as science, just like any other science. We have the opportunity to hypothesize. We have the opportunity to experiment with our data. And then we will come up with theories. Important fact here is we're not coming up with facts. This is a science where we come up with a theory based on what we know now, with the best information we have, just like any other science. This is not business intelligence. This is not data analytics, where we come up with the answer's always 42. We're not coming up with facts, we're coming up with theories. And by thinking about data science as a science of data, we're giving ourselves the opportunity to move forward into the future in the way and at the pace that we need to. It gives us a platform where we can come up with a theory, and from there, that's the best we know, and we will move forward from that to come up with the next theory and just prove ourselves, right? That's the ultimate goal, is to find out what we know now that we think is solid is actually something different. But unless we use this as a platform to move forward, we won't be in a position to face the future that's coming. So embrace data science as the science of data and what that means for you and your organisation. It's very, very liberating. So like with any science, right, to come up with your hypothesis, you've got to have some ground truth. You've got to know some things or be confident that it's pretty right. So let's just do a little bit of a test on what this means for data science. So ground truth, 1 + 1 = 2. Yeah, very good. It's not complex, don't worry, this is not a test. So let's test this. So we've all agreed ground truth, 1 + 1 = 2. So what about if 1 + 1 equals what? Present. Yeah, it was my birthday last week. So yeah, love presents. But 1 + 1 can also equal a present. So we've got a literal truth, 1 + 1 = 2, and a figurative truth of 1 + 1 = a present. This is also a mindset that you need to take into when you're looking at data science, because what an algorithm might tell us is 1 + 1 = 2, and we'll go, good job, we know that. What an algorithm might tell us is 1 + 1 = a present. And we'll go, that's not right, it's hallucinating. But it might just be telling us another version of the truth that we don't yet know. So we need to be open to explore this as opportunities. What is it really telling us? And what is it not? So, I'm going to give you some thoughts through this time together today. So my first thought is it's never been more important than now to be human. We need to be making the decisions. So as that example of the ground truth, the machine can come up with all sorts of things. The algorithm, the data we train, very, very clever, and it can come up with all sorts of things. But we need to own the decisions. We need to make the decisions. We need to say, yes, this is something we'll move forward with, or not sure. If it comes up with saying 1 + 1 = a present, we'll go, yeah, nah, or dig into it, find out more, find out if there is something in there. The science of data gives us the opportunity to look beyond the horizon, to experiment into the future and see what we can find there, and then we make the decisions. Oh, hold on. Knock, knock. Okay, hello. Chat ESR here. This is good, interesting, sorry. Been listening to your conversation and I have one more ground truth for you. 1 + 1 = 10. Have a nice day. Okay, cool. It's polite. What? Where did this come from? What does it mean? Binary. Absolutely. This is another ground truth. We hadn't thought of it. I hadn't thought of it. But thank goodness the machine was listening. So here's our opportunity. The future needs us to be truly innovative, not just repeating what we did yesterday or improving on what we did yesterday. We need true innovation to be efficient and effective into the future. And AI can help us do that. As I said, AI gives us the opportunity to experiment into the future, to see beyond the horizon, to look at what could happen, and then make the best decisions today for tomorrow. So AI is our augmented intelligence. AI is what's going to help us deliver the best future possible if we embrace it for what it is. Which leads me to thought number 2. It's time for a new set. A new set might not be a term that you're familiar with. I thought I'd come up with a new word a few weeks ago when I was talking with one of my team and trying to struggling with what do we need to do? And I was trying to avoid saying we need a reset, because a reset implies we go back and we start again. We need a new set. We need to think new, be new, embrace AI, embrace the opportunity of not having facts, embrace being human, and start looking into the future, not looking back. So a new set in our thinking. Let's think new, be new, let's be future focused, embrace what's around us, what our operating environment is, and the gifts of those that have come before, but use that to be looking forward, because as I touched on, the future is coming fast, whether we're ready or not. So that's the word of the day, new set. So a way to look at this is like the analogy of building the plane in the air. Is anyone familiar with that? It's great, isn't it? Building the plane in the air, you don't have to know what necessarily 100% where you're going. You don't have to have all the plan in place, and you don't have to have everything finished. The key thing is you do have a plan, you have the capabilities, you have the materials, the skills, the people. You have to know what you need to succeed into the future. But the key thing is that you start. You start moving into that future and you learn along the way. If you stay on the start line, you'll never get anywhere, and that future that we talked about will come whether we're ready for it or not. So let's use this analogy. Let's build the plane in the air. We all have great data. We have great capability. We need to invest in our people, and we need to invest in our mindsets, And we also need to invest in our senior leadership team to be able to see this, to move into this brave new frontier. So the concept of building in the plane and the air is where operational excellence and innovation are working hand in hand. This is giving us where, in a lot of organisations, you have your business as usual and you have your projects or your innovation, and they sit in different areas and have different drivers. Put the two together. So the innovation becomes the business as usual. There's a great quote from Henry Ford. When everything seems to be going against you, remember the aeroplane takes off against the wind, not with it. This is us. We are taking off against the wind. We're moving forward with our data and embracing what it can do and delivering outcomes for New Zealanders that they need today and tomorrow. That's our jobs. We all know that it's not all good news, right? We all know that AI has the potential to be quite disruptive. When ChatGPT came out, whose organisations shut it down? Anyone? MB. MB were one of the first to respond to shutting down ChatGPT. There were lots of others that followed after that until we found out what it could do and what it couldn't do. In my organisation, I wrote a guideline that went out straight away, and it was talked about large language models are in the public domain. Treat it like the internet. Use it to explore ideas. Don't put anything in there that's sensitive, but find out the power of what these tools can do for you. And that was received well across the organisation because then people felt safe. They also knew there was a solid line about what they put into any of these models that were in the public domain. AI can be very disruptive, and this is where it comes back to we need to be human and own being human and own the decision making, because otherwise it can run away. If we just entrust our decision making, if we entrust our future to the machine, then it will come up with all of these things like 1 + 1 = a present, and we'll go, cool, it no longer is 2 or 10. We need to be very clear and better than we used to be, because there's all sorts of deep fakes. There are like the American election, the last election. You know, AI is shaping the world around us. We wear Fitbits, we wear Apple Watches. We're being tracked in all our movement, our heart rate, our sleep. Whether we need our fridge is telling us if we need milk. We've got a lot that AI is infiltrating and already working with us in our lives, but we need to stay on top and consciously choose what we do and how we use it. Because like anything, that's this significant a change. There is always someone will use it for bad. So we need to be very mindful that we don't go down that path as much as we possibly can. And there is no playbook, so it is as much as possibly we can. There is no definite right or wrong. Just one other thing I'd touch on this is, as a country, we need to choose what's important for us to develop ourselves, what's important for us to manage and control, because big tech companies are churning out this stuff. It's all through our health system, it's all through every aspect of our life. And that's good to a point, but somewhere we as New Zealanders need to say, this is our domain. And largely this is at the moment being driven by Maori data sovereignty, where the line is drawn. And we need to make sure we respect that and do the right things by New Zealanders. So at ESR, we've got some guardrails in place. We were the first Crown Research Institute to sign up to the Algorithm Charter for Aotearoa New Zealand. And I think this was a move that I pushed for us so that we're part of something bigger. So what we do with AI, we're accountable and responsible and need to be transparent, just as the rest of the public sector. If one of us screws up, we're all in trouble. So we do need to work together, and we need to work together to understand and agree what safe looks like moving into the future. So we don't all have to come up with it by ourselves. We have, as I touched on, we have a guideline around the use of public large language models. We have policies. We have a responsible AI framework internally to help our staff feel safe and confident about moving into the future. These are not to shut them down from doing things. These are to say, here you go, here's the space you can operate in and what that looks like, and be comfortable that you can move forward. We, like the rest of the public sector, have everybody that we're accountable to. Our social licence is imperative that we maintain it. So we have to be responsible thinking about the impact on individuals, communities, and New Zealand as a whole. So our social licence is probably our biggest guardrail that we have. So in terms of digital twins, so start to give some examples of what we're doing at ESR. There's like four layers essentially to a digital twin. So like visualising the interplay of factors between over time, discovering hidden interactions between factors, and simulating future scenarios, so like what if, and then also decision-making tools at the top end. So there's a lot of people working in the digital twin space, and it's very exciting to be talking with any number of them at the moment. So different people have different definitions, different organisations have different definitions, but they typically fall into one or more of those types of categories. So this is an example of a digital twin that we've created. So we started with the concept of we would build a platform that we could feed data into. It could find relationships between various data sets and then work out what the correlation between them was. So we started with COVID data because we knew a lot about COVID and we knew what happened. And so we built this platform and we fed it all the COVID data and we got our ground truth. It was working. It was predicting what we knew happened at the time. So then we thought, well, we get a bit more imaginative with this. So we brought in some what seemingly random data. So we brought in crime data and we brought in employment data. And what it's doing here is showing you then we can look at this over time. What happened with crime and employment rates during COVID, and what's the relationship between the two? And we can look at it by various regions. And we also can do what if analysis. So what if, and it'll get to the point, what if crime reduced by 60%? What does that look like? And so simply and in real time, we can experiment into the future. We don't think there's any relationship much between crime and COVID or jobs advertised or unemployment, but actually there might be. This type of thing allows us to experiment and find where 1 + 1 can equal a present. So that was our first platform that we've developed. So then we started looking at one of those big challenges that I touched on earlier about climate change. We're working with the communities, and this is Palau. It's a bunch of islands that look much like this, so very, very under threat from climate change. We started building out a digital twin to start looking at the impact of climate change, so how we could build resilience for communities that are sadly very threatened. So our digital twin that we're developing, we're bringing in data about the climate, about weather. Tonga's one area we're working with, air quality. They have air pollution in Tonga, who knew? Weather forecasting, the demographics, the bacteria. So we're bringing all this data together and we're creating effectively a digital twin that looks at the environmental health and also the human health and the interplay between the two. So this is something that we're working on at the moment with these three countries. And the time, they don't have time. Time is running out for them. So the value to them is not going to be much. But the value to us, their gift to us, is we're learning the lessons now that we'll need to apply into the future, into the near future in New Zealand. So in these countries, drinking water, their fresh water sits on top of the seawater under the ground. As sea levels rise, their fresh water decreases. As the temperature goes up, bacteria start to emerge in their water. It's all of the small things that add up to the big things. So we're learning a lot with these people now. It's a very humbling experience to have this opportunity. But this is what we've got to do to be making New Zealand a livable country into the future. So this leads me to thought number 3. You don't have to do everything. Focus on fundamental research or applied research and find your partners. In all the work that we're doing, we're not developing the models. We are partnering with others who develop the models. We're using open source, and we're doing the application of what that looks like. We are finding partners in universities, we're in New Zealand, overseas, and private industry as well. There's a lot of people working in this climate change space, and we won't make the progress that we need if we work independently. We have to move faster, so we have to work together. So think about what you're good at, think about what's important for you to do, go hard at that, and find others to work with. So as I touched on, we're using a lot of open source. If we were buying off the shelf, we'd be locked into something. It would be costing us money. We would have issues into the future around Maori data sovereignty. Where is the data? What's it going to be used for into the future? That's all too hard for us. We're not big enough. So we're going down the path of open source, and then it's how do we use those models? How do we apply them to our real world situations is the approach that we've taken. That's mitigating a lot of risks for us and meaning that we're able to be more agile. If a model works for a while, that's great. When there's another model comes along that's better, we can just use that and swap out. So one of these models that we've partnered with is the June model that Durham University has developed. And the June model is something that they came up with during COVID. So it was modelling out how a pandemic would move through a population. It's reliant on creating a synthetic population. So it's instead of there being a Jan and everyone else, there's agents, there's that have behaviours, that live in a household with multiple generations, there's go to work, they have children go to kindy, and then they come home and they spread germs like little kids do when they go to kindy. But so the model that they created was the pure research side, and they used that in the UK for COVID. But now that COVID's over, Durham University started looking for partners around the world, for agencies like us who can apply this. So how do we apply it to the New Zealand context? So I'm very keen to talk to anyone who's interested in synthetic populations afterwards. We're in the process of developing one that we would like to share, because if we all develop a synthetic population, then we're all spending time getting to the start line when we should be taking off. So with the synthetic population, then we get to look at what happens over time. And so we applied this to the measles outbreak in Auckland, and this is what happened. This is the reality of what happened. And then we used our model to what would happen if we had vaccination rates of 90%. Because the consequence of COVID, as we're all well aware of, is immunisation against what were the diseases, the communicable diseases that were under control, like measles, because we had high vaccination rates. With COVID, our vaccinations rates dropped. So we now have a vulnerability. So being able to use this on a simple known disease to New Zealand, we can look at and show what would happen, why it's important to get our vaccination rates back up to 90%. Everybody knows this, right? But we're just using it on what we think we know as ground truth to show this kind of capability can be used to inform policy going forward. We can use it to ask new and challenging questions of things we don't know, but we've got to establish the credibility. I touched on large language models before. Really, really cool capability. Turned up just over a year ago, overnight. Blown away. Everyone was blown away by it. So you know the stock standard model of the neural network and training on the algorithm and all the public data that goes into it. Using Llama 2 as the example here, because what we've also done is, and you saw the power of this earlier, we created Chat ESR. So we downloaded the small version of Llama 2. We're running it on our own on-prem high-performance compute, so it's contained. And we're training it on our data to see insights that we need to find. And simple applications at the moment, looking at when we do food safety testing, then a scientist has to write the report. And it's like it's a 1, 3 and a 5, or it's a 2 and a 6. But the scientist spends time to write a bespoke report every time we do food safety testing. This can do it. This can do it in less than a second. So we're finding safe use cases in the first instance to improve the efficiency of our own organisation. But then we're also looking for how do we use this to test out what would happen, how would people respond to a change in policy, and we trying to get it to have conversations with itself and see how people would respond. It's really quite incredible, and those use cases into the future are things that we're experimenting with now to see where we can use it to add value. Lots of potential, but safety is paramount. So, thought number 4, the risk of doing nothing outweighs the risk of doing something. We've got to be building our plane, we've got to be taking off, we've got to be embracing AI, we've got to be using large language models safely, and we've got to know what that looks like. But the thing is, we've got to be doing something. Really important that we're not alone. As I touched on before, we look for partners, we look for real-world problems to solve. We're not on our own. One of the biggest challenges in this journey is our own organisation. As everybody knows, when you try and do something new and innovative, it can be quite scary, and it can cost money, and it requires trust in ways that hasn't needed to exist before, when everything else your organisation does is well known. So we've been doing a lot of work on our own organisation to shift the dial, and you've got to start there. We've been partnering with other government agencies. We've been talking a lot around town about the capabilities and the potential that these technologies can bring. We all need to be working together. Very happy to talk to anyone who wants to talk further about this at any point. We've also been talking to some commercial companies, and we've only been on this journey a short while, and we've already had our first commercial contract out of this. There is money in the private sector for some of these types of technologies. So talking with, looking and exploring commercial opportunities helps us generate revenue, which we can reinvest in our research. And that helps shift the dial in the public sector, which is often a bit slower to shift than the private sector. Always looking for collaborators. We've got a number of universities, research centres, both in New Zealand and overseas, that are coming to us now that want to help, as Durham University did. Out of that, Oxford rang up and MIT rang up, and it's like, we hear you using the June model, we're developing that out. How can we help? And like, this is for free, right? They're not asking for money, they're not looking for revenue out of this. They're wanting to make the world a better place and a safer place into the future. So collaborators, absolutely essential. And the public, we have to be taking the public on the journey with us, because they have to maintain confidence in the decisions that we make using these technologies that impact their lives. They have to believe in as well. In short, we can't succeed on our own. None of us can succeed on our own. and we need to join forces, because this future that we're all excited about is coming, whether we're ready or not. So where will we land? Who knows, actually? We don't. And that's not really what's important. What's important is that we're moving into the future and we're learning. We're learning as we go, and we're seeing new possibilities and new options for destinations. But to be honest, the point is not to actually land anywhere. The point is to keep going into the future and keep being better versions of us than we can be, which is truly exciting, to be honest. So in summary, it's never been more important than now to be human. That's rule number one. It's time for a new set. Embrace thinking new, being new, and solving tomorrow's problems today. Remember, you don't have to do everything by yourself. Focus on fundamental research or applied research. To do both takes too long. There's others out there who are good, so find your partners. And the risk of doing nothing outweighs the risk of doing something. So whatever you do will be better than doing nothing. Thank you.
Oh, the little gift.
Thank you.
Hopefully you don't drink that this morning, but who knows, maybe afterwards. Jan, your talk was extremely inspiring. I did actually write it myself, not AI. Albeit a little bit tiny bit scary. It opens up your eyes to everything that's happening in the world. Building the future in data, super exciting. And how we can all collaborate on actually using that data together to find, solutions, and how we can actually solve certain issues in the world. But thank you so much, Jan. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day and you join us for brunch, morning tea, brunch. Same.